morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Running away from office. Anyway, my name is Bill Fogg. I'm the president of the board of directors here at the church. And on behalf of the board, I want to welcome you all back. It's so good to see everybody in person rather than on Zoom. It's going to be great to have live music. But I also want to welcome back to the pulpit Bob MacDonald. Because I think this is the first time since Bob came back as a minister that we're in here.
Oh, right.
So anyway, it's great to see you all. It's great to have Bob here, and we will be doing an in-person plate collection, so no more avoiding that. So anyway, welcome back. We're so glad to see you all. And thank you to everybody who made this service possible. Yeah, the board also did a great deal, and we're indebted to them. I just wanted to underline that we're reopening, we think, in the safest possible way. So we're saying masks and distance, and we aren't passing out paper bulletins because we think we don't need to do that to start. We will be passing the plates because we know you'd be disappointed if we didn't. So that part will be happening. We are starting with using Zoom, so that's why this computer is here, and there are a few folks out there I'll be happy to be talking to as well as to you. So should I be saying anything else? Oh, after the service, for those who can stay, you're getting water. Hopefully not water from above, but water from Ronnie, and we can stand around 6 feet apart. Outside, yes. The only person who's allowed water inside is the sermonizer. Okay, I think that's probably.
Another thing, if you're hard of hearing, these things are working.
Oh,
They are working.
They are working.
Okay, that's the vote from John to use those. Also, there are bound to be glitches today, and I'm saying to the folks who are out there, you all, I'd like your feedback if you sense any glitches that I may not. I always felt when I was asking for criticism from UUs, I didn't really need to do that. Today I am, and we hope that it goes smoothly, and appreciate your being here as the folks here in front of me. For those who can't see, there are about 30 people gathered here. So I'm gonna send this number into the UUA. No, I'm not. Anyhow, now our duet of Jackie Robbins and Catherine Warren will begin with a prelude, and then Ronnie.
Catherine and Jackie, thank you so much. That was beautiful. I have a little special note, which is going to be hard for this audience since they've already been making noise, but we're requesting that in the sanctuary, you try to be as quiet as possible so the voice is not carried over Zoom, which would be, since we're in both, and since we can't do live streaming 100% yet, then that won't be a problem when we can. But just for today, and we also are not going to be singing the hymns. We're going to have a little chorus come off. They're going to take off their masks to sing if they want to. And you can hum in your mask. Just for today. This is a tryout, okay? And hello to the Zoom people. Nice to see all of you. Good morning. Welcome to the Treasure Coast Unitarian Universalist Congregation in Stewart, Florida. Today is July 11th, 2021, and my name is Ronnie Dembowski. I will be your worship associate today, and I don't know where to look, if I should look at the Zoomers or you guys, so I'm really have to just figure this out. We are a welcoming congregation. We welcome people of all gender identities, races, and backgrounds. It is wonderful to see all our vaccinated people here for our service today. I'd like to thank the ushers, the greeters, Jackie, Catherine, our Zoom hosts, Karina Filoni and Chris McGahan, and Janet Grove, who's always the backup everything. Thank you again, all of you. Now we're going to do the chalice lighting. Bob will light the chalice, and I'll say a few words. In this time of uncertainty, when everything around us is changing constantly, each day new developments, rising numbers, changing guidelines, the world we live in, we suddenly seem upside down and topsy-turvy. We light our chalice to remind ourselves of our grounding in our faith. We remember that the flaming chalice came into being as a beacon of hope. Alice Nesman. My opening words. When I think of UU principles and look at the seventh one, which is the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all, I am reminded that one of the most important ways to achieve this is to listen, to really listen. This is the first step needed to understand each other. All people and nations want to be really listened to and taken seriously and understood. Now a poem by John Fox, not the one we love that's sitting right here, but another John Fox, When Someone Listens. When someone deeply listens to you, it is like holding out a dented cup. You have had since childhood and watching it fill up with cold, fresh water. When someone deeply listens to you, the room where you stay starts a new life, and the place where you wrote your first poem becomes the flow in your mind's eye. Your bare feet on the earth and a beloved land that seems distant is now at home within you. Now we're going to have hymn 361, and the singers are going to come up front and sing, and where the rest of us are going to hum. Come on, singers. It's up to you if you want to take your masks off to sing. Okay, don't sit down, my friends. The singers don't sit, because we're going to do the affirmation, but the second verse, you're the singers, and it's going to be projected, I believe, on the wall, if you can't remember it. Okay. Affirmation. Let us recite our affirmation, speaking the first verse, and the chorus will sing the second verse. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is a great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. joys and sorrows. And Bob will move, Reverend Bob will move the stones into our collective river. And if anybody here has a joy or concern, they can just stand up and then he'll move the stone for you. And anybody online, if you raise your hand, I'll repeat what you say to the audience here. Does anybody have a joy or concern? No? Anybody else? Am I missing anybody? No. Okay. For all those that do not wish to share their joys and sorrows out loud, please know that our hearts are with you. We will place a stone in the symbolic river to mark these unspoken words. Now we will have a meditation from our own wonderful Reverend Bob.
UUs don't fear diversity. We thrive on it. We want everyone to be just who they were born to be and be proud of it. But it is these moments as we reach in and reach out, these moments of shared grief, fear, and loss, and these moments of shared joy and happiness, these moments make us one. Because in the end, as in our beginning, we are human, all of us. And human is a package fraught with agony and ecstasy. And now, Spirit of Life, 123. offering is an expression both of our gratitude and our generosity. And now the offering will be received. We have expressed our gratitude and our commitment. Before the sermon, this reading, those who have been with me here in my first chapter will recognize What I Have Lived For by Bertrand Russell. British mathematician, philosopher, pacifist, agnostic, which reminds me of that line, if it's the truth, it doesn't matter who said it. But this is the loftiest expression I know of what it means to be human. It is the early 1900s, so rather patriarchal, but still profound. What I Have Lived For, Bertrand Russell. Three passions, simple but overwhelmingly strong, have governed my life. The longing for love, the search for knowledge, and unbearable pity for the suffering of mankind. These passions, like great winds, have blown me hither and thither in a wayward course over a deep ocean of anguish, reaching to the very verge of despair. I have sought love first because it brings ecstasy. Ecstasy so great that I would often have sacrificed all the rest of life for a few hours of this joy. I have sought it next because it relieves loneliness, that terrible loneliness in which one shivering consciousness looks over the rim of the world into the cold, unfathomable, lifeless abyss. I have sought it finally because in the union of love, I have seen in a mystic miniature the prefiguring vision of the heaven that saints and poets have imagined. This is what I sought, and though it might seem too good for human life, this is what at last I have found. With equal passion I have sought knowledge. I have wished to understand the hearts of men. I have wished to know why the stars shine, and I have tried to apprehend the Pythagorean power by which number holds sway above the flux. A little of this, but not much, I have achieved. Love and knowledge, so far as they were possible, led upward toward the heavens. But always pity brought me back to earth. Echoes of cries of pain reverberate in my heart. Children in famine, victims tortured by oppressors, helpless old people, a hated burden to their sons, and the whole world of loneliness, poverty, and pain make a mockery of what human life should be. I long to alleviate the evil, but I cannot, and I too suffer. This has been my life. I have found it worth living and gladly would live it again if the chance were offered me. There is a popular hymn in another denomination, one that I know well. It is sung with feeling when clergy gather after long times of apart. The hymn begins, "And are we yet alive, and see each other's face?" It then goes on to thank the source. "And are we yet alive, and see each other's half face?" I am still grateful to the source, the giver, however we name that. Over the course of this past year plus, an interminable quarantine, and death watch, and death count, and death avoidance, we learned or were reminded of some things that underlined our UU-ness and our pride in that UU-ness. From Dr. King or someone else, we got the idea of beloved community. Not sure what that means, but it seems to me, or at least means to us, a gathering, a fellowship in which we are all welcomed and affirmed. So we gathered on Zoom and kept in touch as much as we could. Some of us had to admit, for me, it was grudging somewhat, but we had to admit it was good to see each other even on a screen. And I also have to say, when I saw some of you in the park, I had to look twice to see if you were that person, because you didn't quite look the same. Someone here told me I look better on the screen than in person, but that might have been a joke, I'm not sure. So a number of us couldn't wait, and at Pam and Marguerite's invite, we gathered in the park with a bag lunch, mask to start, and social distancing. After several parks, downtown Stewart Memorial Park worked best. I would have liked to have had discussions on the meaning of life. That's what religion is about for me. But that's exactly what we were doing. The meaning of life was staying alive, encouraging each other to do the same, and connecting with other caring souls. Our topics in the park varied. We heard good recommendations from Netflix, even steamy recommendations from Netflix. Who was hot on Bridgerton? In one of the latest gatherings, we got into whose home insurance was being dropped and the difficulties of replacing it. All I could say was, can't we just go back to Netflix? We need this community. We don't all need it the same way or for the same things, but we all need it. Disconnect and loneliness were bitter pills, like the cod liver oil my mother pushed when I was little, never explaining why. We need this community, however much we might sometimes disagree. That's what families do, even loving families. The second gift of COVID was the reminder we had better cultivate what we have inside, the inner thing we call spirituality. Again, we don't agree on what spirituality is. We don't have to. Spirituality is different for all of us. That's just one of the differences you celebrate. I learned again this year that spirituality didn't make fear go away, and sometimes fear took over. So more than once, I lay down thinking the fear would go away, or I would. And eventually all I could think was, enough, get up and do something. Jennifer Boylan, opinion writer for the Times, had quite a tribute to On Golden Pond, its 40-year anniversary. The piece was called The Call of Loons and of Mortality. Now, Jennifer Boylan and her wife live in New Hampshire, near where On Golden Pond was filmed. And I love some of the things she has to say. Remember Ethel Thayer, Katharine Hepburn, Norman Thayer, Henry Fonda. Like Ethel, I'm fundamentally an optimist, and I'm determined to face my so-called declining years with resistance and grace. But like Norman, I feel the chill of mortality creeping close. Early in the film, Norman, alone in his summer cabin, lovingly fingers a fishing rod. Then he looks at a framed photo from the Daily Pennsylvanian with the headline, Professor Thayer Retires. He looks into a mirror, stunned by the face he sees there, and then he says, humph. If you ever wonder why Mr. Fonda won an Oscar for this role, all you need to do is examine how much meaning he wrings from that one soft syllable. Mrs. Hepburn won an Oscar for Best Actress for her performance too. Like many older people, I too often say, humph, when I look at the mirror. You don't have to suffer from Alzheimer's to wonder, as Norman does, who the hell is that? Who in hell is in that picture there? I like these words of, again, Jennifer Boylan. My legs feel every day as if I have just run a marathon, even after a day when I've just been lying around on the couch. My doctors don't seem to know exactly what is wrong with me, but they keep doing tests. Spirituality is our inner well, and when not ignored, our inner wellness. It is different for all of us. I like lines like the Bertrand Russell piece, or the Psalms, or the Beatitudes, or many hymns and poetry. They are, for me, the best pickup lines. Someone reminded me recently that we don't do enough with our third principle. Now, I know the first, but I had to look up the third. Encouragement to spiritual growth. Well, that's a good part of my job here, not to tell you what your spirituality is, but to tell you not to ignore it. Not to ignore it. Because the time came when we all needed whatever store we had inside to see us through. The third lesson or reminder from COVID for me is the UU push for activism. Get to the ballot, get to the street, get to the bridge, whatever it takes to right wrongs. And our great nation has many to work on. I heard the historian John Meacham say this week that we should compare the way the Communist Party of China celebrated its centennial and how we celebrate our founding. And before I can repeat criticisms of China, I have to say the colonial powers of the West seem to suffer amnesia when it comes to how the superior armies of the West treated China in the 1800s to make the Chinese keep buying opium from Western merchants. Meacham's point was that China could celebrate a centennial without a mention of a national atrocity. We can celebrate our founders and our founding with plenty of mention of our original sin, slavery, and its many kindred atrocities since. Racism is an ongoing graduate seminar, and many Americans just want more amnesia. I've never really heard the term before, generational wealth, but I've been a tad jealous of people I knew who inherited. So it was an eye-opener when I learned the black families of Tulsa who were burned out in 1920, at least those families who survived the massacre, didn't get their land back. Their heirs inherited poverty. During the pandemic, we saw those long lines of people needing food. How could it be otherwise? We've been told for years that the average American family has about $400 to fall back on in a crisis. How could the pandemic not show the realities of income inequality in America and the shortcomings of our healthcare system? UU has a proud history of activism, and just like our spirituality, you get to define your own. What do you want to work on to make it better for someone else? When people tell me what they worked on, I learn. I need to learn. I told you recently I was meeting with a retired law officer, or retired sheriff actually, a black activist from Rhode Island, who called us about getting out the vote a year ago, working on that last year. When I called him last year, I discovered he and I were in a program in Chicago in April 1967. He was with the Ford Foundation. I was from the seminary. I attended there for 1 year. He gave me a 2-hour tutorial on racism in America. And he said he would do a Q&A sermon with me here. He taught me that the mob was alive and well in Providence, Rhode Island. Sorry, Bruce. He had been on the front line of all the civil rights struggles with Dr. King and any civil rights leader I could think of. 2 issues he raised: not enough focus of black crimes against black people, and badly needed funds for literacy for adult black men. I won't ask you if you can suggest more places to get to work, because I know you can. That's what we do here. This year of our higher education goes on. While at times we have felt helpless, we have also been reminded of goods we got, of goods we need, and of goods to share. I was going to call this whole thing Time to Build Back Better, but that line's been taken. So I'll just say you, and proud, and not done, and not done in. Our closing hymn is 118, This Little Light of Mine. Our singers will lead us, and hopefully you'll all hum along. As Ronnie extinguishes our chalice, these closing words. We are a community of kindred spirits. We reach in to find that little light and be guided. We reach out to do the good we can. Posted. Thank you so much, Jackie and Catherine.
You're welcome. That last tune was called Songs My Mother Taught Me by Anton Dvorak.
Wonderful. Again, our thanks to the folks in the closet and Chris and Marina who will join us. And thank you all for making this a pretty special morning. Now there's water out back. I could turn it, bless it, and turn it into something more powerful, but I think I'll just do that. Maybe you can find places in shade to stand outside and chat with each other for a while, but do come back next week.